There's something poetically satisfying about watching your husband's career implode on the same corporate credit card he used to pay for his mistress's creme brulee, especially when 17 executives are watching it happen in real time during what they thought would be a quarterly marketing presentation. I didn't plan on becoming the producer of Boston's most exclusive reality show that Wednesday evening, but when your husband of 11 years is dumb enough to take his side piece to the restaurant where your college best friend is the general manager, it's practically the universe handing you the director's chair. Let me back up. I'm Giselle Monroe, 35, Senior Marketing Director at Apex Solutions, a tech firm where working late is a personality trait and company loyalty is expected to rival your marriage vows. Ironic considering what I'm about to tell you. My husband EMTT, 37, is or rather was our director of sales. The kind of guy who collects LinkedIn endorsements like they're Olympic medals and refers to himself as a rainmaker without a hint of irony. We met at Apex 12 years ago, married 11 years back, and since then, we've built what I thought was the perfect power couple life in our Beacon Hill brownstone. No kids. Our careers were our babies. Or so we told ourselves at dinner parties where people inevitably asked why we hadn't started a family yet. Giselle, I've got that convention in Chicago tomorrow. 3 days of mindless networking and mediocre hotel coffee. EMTT announced last Tuesday, tossing his overnight bag on our bedroom chair. Reynolds wants me to smooth the card people for that new partnership. I nodded absently, barely looking up from my laptop where I was putting final touches on next day's presentation. What time is your flight? Early car service at 5:00 a.m., he said, checking his Rolex. The one I'd given him for our 10th anniversary. Don't wait up tonight. Got to prep some materials. When you've been married over a decade, you develop a sixth sense for I didn't have that tingle yet, but looking back, all the red flags were there, printed in high definition and waving frantically in my face. The sudden trip, the vague details, the late-night prep work, but 11 years of trust buys a lot of benefit of the doubt. The next day passed in a blur of meetings and deadlines. Around 7:00 p.m., I was still at the office drowning in analytics reports when my phone buzzed with a text from Pierce Sullivan, my friend since our Boston University days and current general manager of Harbor Lights, the CNBC restaurant where you need to book 3 months in advance unless you're someone or sleeping with someone. Weird question. Isn't EMTT supposed to be in Chicago? My stomach didn't just drop. It performed a full Olympic diving routine. Yes. Card Tech Convention. Why? 3 dots pulsed for what felt like eternity. Because he just walked into my restaurant with Paige Collins from your HR department. Private table in the back. Very cozy. Very not business casual. Paige Collins, 26, the new HR intern with the sunshine smile and Harvard MBA who EMTT had personally championed for our executive training program, the one he mentioned in every other sentence at dinner for the past 3 months. Paige had this brilliant idea. Paige's approach to the staffing issue. Paige brings such fresh energy to the team. I'd been so busy being impressed by his sudden interest in mentorship that I missed what was painfully obvious. My husband was having the world's most transparent midlife crisis. Are you sure it's them? I typed, still clinging to the fraying edges of my reality. Pierce responded with a photo. There they were, EMTT in his power suit, leaning in close to Paige, whose glossy dark hair cascaded over a dress that definitely violated our company's business attire policy. His hand was on hers. The company credit card sat on the table edge. I can't believe he's stupid enough to bring her to my restaurant, P.S. texted. Want me to spit in his food? Just say the word. But I had something much better in mind. Can you give me access to your security camera feed just for an hour or so? Pierce, bless his petty heart, didn't even hesitate. System login. ManagerHarborLights.com. Password. Boston View 2023. Camera 8 covers their table. This expires in 3 hours. Use it wisely, you magnificent creature. Now I could have gone nuclear immediately. Stormed down there, created a scene worthy of a Bravo reality show, tossed his overpriced Cabernet in his lying face. But I've always believed revenge, like a fine wine, benefits from proper preparation. I looked at my calendar and saw the perfect opportunity, the quarterly strategy meeting scheduled for 8:30 p.m., the one where all department heads, including our CEO, Maddox Harrison, and Chief Human Resources Officer, Vivian Taylor, would be dialing in for updates on our Q2 campaigns. The meeting EMTT was supposed to attend from his Chicago hotel room. I spent the next hour setting the stage. First, I called it and had them add screen sharing capabilities review to the agenda. Then, I practiced my presentation, making sure the important slides were front-loaded. Finally, I sent a company-wide email reminding everyone of the critical strategy alignment happening at 8:30 sharp. At 8:28, I logged into the Harbor Lights security system. Camera 8 provided a crystal clear view of EMTT refilling Paige's champagne glass, their appetizers half-eaten, his wedding ring clearly visible as he gestured animatedly about something that made her giggle. They were sharing the seafood tower, the one I'd introduced him to on our anniversary 2 years ago. At 8:30, 17 executives joined the Zoom call. I began professionally walking through the first quarter's marketing wins, engagement metrics, and growth projections. 20 minutes in, right when attention typically starts to wander, I cleared my throat. Before we move to department updates, I'd like to share something relevant to our transparency initiative and resource allocation discussions, I said, my voice steady as a surgeon's hand. I'm going to share my screen for a live demonstration. With 3 clicks, I broadcast the Harbor Lights Camera 8 feed to the entire executive team. There was EMTT now feeding Paige a fork full of chocolate soul, her hand playfully swatting his shoulder. The Zoom chat exploded instantly. I continued in my best presentation voice. As you can see, we have an interesting case study in progress. Our director of sales, who expense reported a $1,200 flight to Chicago, $450 per night at the Langham Hotel, and $75 in PDM for the card convention, is actually conducting what appears to be a non-businessiness dinner with our newest HR intern at Harbor Lights. You'll note the corporate AMX on the table, which I'm sure will make for some fascinating expense report reading. Dead silence fell over the call. Cameras that had been off suddenly flickered to life as executives scrambled to witness the corporate car crash in real time. CEO Maddox Harrison, a man whose resting face resembled a disappointed eagle, unmuted first. Ms. Monroe, is this some kind of joke? Not at all, sir. Just demonstrating our new transparency analytics in action. You'll notice from the timestamp that this is happening right now while Mr. Monroe is supposedly representing us in Chicago. The Chief Human Resources Officer, Vivian Taylor, looked like she'd swallowed a lemon whole. Paige Collins is in her probationary period in our executive training program. The program EMTT personally advocated for her admission to overruling 2 more experienced candidates. I smiled thinly. What a fascinating coincidence. I've taken the liberty of forwarding relevant email correspondence to compliance and legal before this meeting. Now, shall we continue with the scheduled department updates, or would you prefer to watch the dessert course in its entirety? The next 24 hours unfolded like a corporate disaster movie, where I somehow landed the dual roles of protagonist and cinematographer. After broadcasting EMTT's fine dining infidelity to the entire executive team, I calmly wrapped up the meeting as if I hadn't just detonated a Suite nuclear bomb. My final words. I trust this information will be handled with the same professionalism and discretion that Apex Solutions prides itself on, hung in the air like the world's most passive-aggressive mission statement. The aftermath was immediate. CEO Maddox Harrison, a man who treated ethical violations the way most people treat cockroaches in their kitchen, unmuted himself one final time before ending the call. Ms. Monroe, my office, 7 a.m. tomorrow. Legal and HR will join us. His tone carried all the warmth of a tax audit. Meanwhile, across town at Harbor Lights, EMTT and his dessert companion remained blissfully unaware that they had just starred in Boston's most exclusive private screening. According to Pierce's gleeful text updates, they lingered until nearly 11 with the bill totaling $347, not including the 25% tip, EMTT added. Because nothing says responsible leadership quite like extravagant spending on your corporate card while committing both marital and professional suicide. I went home, poured myself a glass of the ridiculously expensive beau that EMTT had been saving for a special occasion, and methodically began implementing what I now think of as the extinction protocol. First, I called our family lawyer, Diane Winters, leaving a message that managed to be both vague and crystal clear. Diane, it's Giselle Monroe. I need to discuss immediate options regarding a sudden change in my marital situation. Also, any expertise you have on Massachusetts employment law would be particularly helpful. It's urgent. Next, I transferred half of our joint savings to my personal account. Not everything, because unlike my husband, I understand that scorched earth tactics make for dramatic stories, but messy court proceedings. Then, I changed all my passwords, email, social media, banking, even our Netflix account. Sorry, EMTT. You'll have to find out what happens in the new season of Betrayed Spouses of Boston on your own account. By midnight, I drafted a detailed email to our company's head of security requesting immediate revocation of EMTT's access to our home office systems due to a potential conflict of interest currently under investigation. I scheduled it to send at 6 a.m. plenty of time to land before my sunrise meeting with Maddox. The crowning achievement of my evening, however, was finding the Find My app still active on EMTT's iPad, which he'd conveniently forgotten in his rush to not go to Chicago. I watched the little blue dot that represented my husband move from Harbor Lights to an address in Brooklyn that, after a quick property search, turned out to be Paige's luxury apartment complex. How convenient that her executive training program came with such comfortable accommodations for after-hours mentoring sessions. I slept surprisingly well that night, wrapped in the cold comfort of someone who has nothing left to lose, but plenty left to orchestrate. At 6:55 a.m., I walked into Apex headquarters with the serene confidence of someone who had packed her husband's belongings into garbage bags and left them in the building's loading dock with a note that read, "Free to a desperate home." Slightly used sales director with loyalty issues. Maddox's corner office overlooked the Boston Harbor, a view he'd often claimed reminds me daily of the importance of navigating treacherous waters. Today, those waters were about to get choppier than a nor'easter in February. Vivian Taylor from HR was already there, looking like she'd spent the night mainlining espresso and employment law statutes. Beside her sat Franklin Powell, our stone-faced general counsel, whose expression suggested he was mentally calculating billable hours for this particular corporate dumpster fire. Giselle Maddox began, "I want to start by saying that regardless of the personal aspects of this situation, your actions last night raised serious concerns about professional judgment and company protocols." I smiled the way I imagined a great white shark might right before a feeding frenzy. "I completely understand, Maddox. That's why I prepared this folder containing every email, text message, and calendar invitation between EMTT and Paige for the past 4 months. You'll notice on page 3 how he overrode standard protocol to fast-track her application to the executive training program despite her lacking the required 5 years of industry experience. I placed a second folder on the desk, and this contains the expense reports showing EMTT's pattern of claiming business trips that coincide remarkably with Paige's professional development conferences. The Chicago convention he was supposedly attending. I called them this morning. They have no record of his registration." Vivian winced. Franklin's eyebrow twitched, the legal equivalent of gasping in horror. "While I understand my methods were unconventional," I continued, "I'd like to point out that I discovered and reported a significant misuse of company resources, a violation of our conflict of interest policy, and potentially a case of preferential treatment that exposes Apex to considerable liability, all by using the transparency tools our own company develops and markets to clients." Maddox's face performed an impressive journey from stern disappointment to reluctant appreciation. "That said," I added, "I recognize this is an untenable working situation. So, I prepared a third option." I handed him a final document. "My resignation effective in 2 weeks contingent upon a standard non-disclosure agreement and the severance package outlined on page 2. The silence that followed was the expensive kind, the sort that costs companies 6 figures to maintain. Franklin recovered first. "These terms are unusually specific." "I had an illuminating night," I replied. Maddox leaned back in his chair, studying me with newfound respect. "And if we were to counter-offer with an alternative arrangement, I'm listening. EMTT is the one who violated company policy. It would be unfortunate to lose 2 senior leaders over one person's indiscretion." What followed was the most surreal salary negotiation of my career, conducted over the smoldering remains of my marriage and my husband's professional integrity. I left Maddox's office 2 hours later with a promotion to Executive Vice President of Strategic Marketing, a 30% salary increase and the keys to a new corner office, specifically EMTT's corner office, which would be transitioning ownership effective immediately. By noon, the company Grapevine was producing more content than Netflix. The official story was that EMTT had taken personal leave to address private matters, but the unofficial story spread through Slack channels and breakroom whispers with the efficiency of a highly contagious virus. I maintained professional composure throughout the day, even when passing Paige in the hallway, who looked like someone had informed her that her dream job had just been reclassified as professional home wrecker with limited career advancement opportunities. "Paige," I nodded politely, noting how her complexion matched the ecru wall paint. "Giselle, I don't know what to say," she stammered, clutching her portfolio like a shield. "No need to say anything," I replied with a smile that could freeze mercury. "I believe your quarterly review is next week. I'll make sure your performance is evaluated thoroughly." I'm particularly interested in your contributions to our company culture. She practically sprinted toward the elevator. At 3:00 p.m., my phone exploded with texts from EMTT, who had apparently just discovered that his key card no longer worked. His email redirected to an account suspended message, and his personal items were waiting for him in trash bags at the service entrance. What have you done? His first message screamed in all caps, the digital equivalent of a toddler's tantrum. I didn't respond. Some performances deserve no applause. Instead, I walked into my new corner office, placed my nameplate on the desk, and sent a company-wide email introducing myself as the new EVP of Strategic Marketing, adding that I look forward to bringing transparency and integrity to all our operations. My first executive decision, canceling the executive training program, pending comprehensive review of our selection criteria. My second, ordering a bottle of champagne sent to Pierce at Harbor Lights with a note that simply read, Table 8 sends its regards. By Friday morning, a mere 36 hours after the Great Table 8 broadcast, I had successfully transformed from round wife to corporate phoenix rising from the ashes of her husband's spectacular self-immolation. The speed of this metamorphosis would have made Darwin question his entire evolutionary timeline. What I hadn't anticipated was EMTT's breathtaking commitment to digging his grave even deeper. Around 10:00 a.m., he made his grand entrance into Apex's lobby, bypassing security by tailgating behind a delivery person. Security footage, which our head of security, Martin, gleefully shared with me, showed him storming toward the executive floor like a man whose privilege had never been questioned. Ms. Monroe, Martin called, barely containing his excitement. You might want to see this live feed from reception. I gathered a few key allies, Vivian from HR and Franklin from legal, into my new corner office just in time to witness EMTT's futile attempts to access the executive floor. Watching him repeatedly swipe his deactivated keycard with increasing desperation carried the same morbid satisfaction as seeing someone try to pay for their groceries with expired coupons multiplied by 11 years of building resentment. Should we send security? Vivian asked, clearly enjoying the show despite her professional demeanor. Let's give him another minute, Franklin suggested, checking his watch. I want to ensure we have enough footage for the restraining order should it become necessary. Eventually, Maddox himself emerged from the elevator, flanked by two security guards who looked like they moonlighted as competitive weightlifters. Their conversation wasn't audible on the security feed, but EMTT's face transitioned through more colors than a New England autumn. When Maddox handed him an envelope containing a new official notice of his administrative leave pending investigation, EMTT made the critical error of attempting to push past him toward the elevators. Oh, that's a workplace conduct violation, Vivian narrated, scribbling notes with the enthusiasm of a sports commentator. And now we definitely have grounds for the restraining order, Franklin added as the security guards escorted my flailing husband toward the exit. I want full footage. Preservation, I instructed Martin. And please make sure the building staff knows he's not to be admitted under any circumstances. After EMTT's forcible departure, I sequestered myself in my office and shifted focus to something even more important than watching my husband's career collapse, ensuring my own success wouldn't be tainted by association. I spent the afternoon meeting individually with my key team members, reassuring them that our department's trajectory remained stable despite the unfortunate situation with leadership in sales. The subtext was clear: align with me and prosper. Mention my personal drama and perish professionally. Your discretion during this transitional period will be noted and remembered, I told each of them, maintaining eye contact just long enough to be slightly uncomfortable. Not a single person brought up Table 8 or EMTT afterward. Funny how effective the right kind of silence can be. Around 4:00 p.m., I received a call from Diane Winters, my newly retained divorce attorney, who made Machiavelli look like an optimistic kindergarten teacher. Giselle, I've reviewed your situation and I have excellent news, she began, her voice carrying the precise tone of someone who thrives on other people's marital catastrophes. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state, but given the circumstances of infidelity, particularly with a colleague, and the documented misuse of company resources, she paused for dramatic effect. We're going to take him to the cleaners, fold him neatly, and put him on the highest shelf where he can't reach anything. I laughed for what felt like the first time in days. That's why I hired you, Diane. I've already drafted the initial filing. Now, regarding the condo in Beacon Hill, you mentioned it's in both names. Yes, but I made the down payment using an inheritance from my grandmother. Perfect. And the summer cottage in Cape Cod joint purchase, but all renovations came from my bonus last year. Even better. And tell me about this corporate investigation. Will there be formal findings? I smiled into the phone. Let's just say Apex takes conflicts of interest very seriously when they happen on camera and are witnessed by the entire executive team. We spent the next hour strategizing with the precision of military generals planning an invasion. By the time we hung up, I had a comprehensive battle plan that included financial forensics to trace any hidden spending on his mentorship activities, evidence preservation. Those security videos would make fascinating exhibits and a timeline for legal filings that would ensure maximum leverage. Meanwhile, EMTT had been blowing up my phone all day. The messages evolved from righteous indignation. How dare you humiliate me like this, to desperate pleading, please, Giselle, let me explain, to pathetic bargaining, we can work this out. Just call off the corporate wolves. I archived each one without responding, creating a beautiful digital paper trail of consciousness as his reality slowly dawned on him. The final message came at 7:30 p.m. I'm coming home. We need to talk face to face. That's when I implemented phase 3 of my extinction protocol. First call, the locksmith who had already changed our apartment locks the previous day, confirming everything was secure. Second call, our building security desk, informing them that my husband was not authorized to enter and any attempts should be reported to me immediately. Third call, Pierce, who was only too happy to provide an alibi for the evening. Dinner at Harbor Lights, table 9 perhaps, just far enough from table 8 to avoid bad memories, he suggested with delicious irony. Perfect. And if you could have the sommelier select something appropriate for celebrating a hostile takeover, that would be lovely. I arrived at the restaurant 20 minutes before EMTT was due at our apartment. P.S. seated me at a table with excellent sightlines to the entrance and handed me a tablet showing our building's lobby security feed, which he'd arranged through a friend in the management company. You're terrifying. You know that, he said admiringly. I prefer strategically proactive, I replied, accepting a glass of champagne. Besides, 11 years of marriage taught me one thing about EMTT. He's pathologically predictable when cornered. Sure enough, at precisely 8:15 p.m., the tablet showed EMTT striding into our building's lobby, overnight bag in hand, clearly expecting to reclaim his territory. The bewilderment on his face when the concierge blocked his path was priceless. I watched him gesture angrily, presumably explaining that he lived there. The concierge calmly pointed to his computer screen, showing whatever flag I'd placed on our account. The pista resistance came when EMTT pulled out his phone, no doubt to call me, only to watch me decline his call in real time on the tablet. He looked directly at the security camera, then his face a perfect portrait of a man realizing he was being watched while experiencing the consequences of his own actions. To your remarkable foresight, Pierce toasted, clinking his glass against mine. And to table 8, I added, where careers go to die and divorces go to thrive. We were halfway through dinner when my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. This is Paige. We need to talk. It's not what you think. I showed it to Pierce, who nearly choked on his scallop. The audacity, he sputtered. What are you going to do? I smiled, the smile of someone who had just been handed the final piece of a complex puzzle. I think it's time for phase 4, divide and conquer. I'm almost afraid to ask, he said, leaning forward eagerly. Never be afraid of a well-executed information strategy, Pierce. By this time tomorrow, EMTT and Paige will be turning on each other like starving piranhas, and I won't have to lift a finger. Saturday morning arrived with the calm clarity that comes from having a meticulously crafted plan and the emotional detachment to execute it perfectly. After spending the night strategizing over an excellent bottle of Cabernet with Pierce, I'd settled on my approach for handling Paige's unexpected outreach. I texted her at 8 a.m. sharp, Beacon Street Coffee 10:0 a.m. Come alone. One chance to talk. Her response was immediate. Thank you. I'll be there. The coffee shop I'd selected was strategically perfect, public enough to prevent a scene, but with secluded corners for private conversation. More importantly, it was directly across from the boutique hotel where EMTT had secured a room after being locked out of our apartment. The hotel where, according to my building's doorman, who had gleefully reported EMTT's pathetic attempt to have his luggage delivered, he was still staying. I arrived 20 minutes early, secured a table with sightlines to both the entrance and the hotel across the street, and settled in with a cappuccino and the morning's financial news. Success is the best accessory, and I wanted Paige to see me thriving, not suffering. She arrived precisely at 10:00, looking like she'd spent the night rehearsing what to say in front of her bathroom mirror. Her usual polished appearance had given way to something more desperate. Minimal makeup, hair pulled back hastily, designer bag clutched like a shield, Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I know you have every reason to hate me. Hate requires emotional investment I'm not willing to make, I replied with practiced indifference. I'm here out of professional courtesy. You have 10 minutes, she flinched slightly. Good, Giselle. This isn't what you think. EMTT told me you two were separated. He said you were already seeing other people and staying together for appearances. The words tumbled out in a practiced rush. He showed me texts from you canceling dates, emails about how busy you were. He said you'd agreed to an open marriage. I maintained my neutral expression, though internally I was cataloging each lie for future reference. And you believed him without verification. Harvard MBA, and you didn't conduct due diligence on such a significant risk. Her cheeks flushed. I thought I was in love. He was so convincing, so attentive. Love doesn't require corporate credit cards at five-star restaurants, I observed mildly, sipping my coffee or expense-paid fake business trips. That was all him, she insisted, leaning forward. I never asked for any of that and I had no idea he was using company resources. That's why I reached out. I don't want my career destroyed because I believed someone's lies. And there it was, her true motivation. Not remorse, not ethical awakening, but professional self-preservation. I almost respected the honesty. What exactly do you want from me, Paige? She hesitated. I want to make this right. I've already spoken with HR about transferring to our Seattle office. I've been offered a position there starting next month. How convenient for you. It wasn't my idea, she protested. Divin suggested it as the cleanest break for everyone. But before I go, I wanted to tell you that EMTT's been saying things about you to executives trying to undermine your position. Now, that was interesting. What kind of things? That you set him up, that you knew about the dinner and orchestrated everything to humiliate him and steal his promotion. She glanced down. He's been reaching out to board members, claiming you violated his privacy and company protocol. I couldn't help but smile. EMTT was following the predictable playbook of mediocre men everywhere. When caught, claim conspiracy. Thank you for the information, I said, my mind already racing with countermeasures. Is there anything else? Just I'm sorry truly. Her eyes filled with tears that might have been genuine. I never meant to hurt anyone. Intent and impact are different animals. Paige, remember that in Seattle? I stood gathering my things. Our 10 minutes are up. As I turned to leave, I added casually. By the way, did EMTT mention he's been seeing someone else besides you? A client relations manager from Kardec named Melissa? They've been meeting at the River Hotel during those Chicago conventions for months. The color drained from her face. What? No, that's not. He wouldn't check his text messages under Mel CT. Password is his birthday backwards. I smiled thinly. Harvard MBA, remember. Always verify your sources. I walked out without looking back, but the security camera footage PS had arranged for me to access later showed exactly what I expected. Paige furiously typing on her phone, then storming across the street toward EMTT's hotel with murder in her eyes. Phase 4 was proceeding perfectly. By Monday morning, the corporate grapevine was buzzing with news that Paige Collins had been spotted having a spectacular meltdown in the lobby of the River Hotel, screaming accusations at EMTT about another woman, while he frantically tried to deny everything. A hotel security guard had captured the entire scene on his phone, and while it hadn't made it to social media yet, the video was circulating among Apex employees faster than the annual bonus rumors. The timing couldn't have been better. The board had called an emergency meeting to discuss the recent leadership disruptions, and I walked in armed with a comprehensive presentation on department restructuring that elegantly solved the EMTT problem while positioning me as the solution-oriented professional above personal drama. Given recent events, I began addressing the room of stern-faced executives. I believe we have an opportunity to streamline our sales and marketing alignment for greater efficiency. My proposal was simple but strategic. Fold sales under the marketing umbrella temporarily while conducting an external search for a new sales director. This would give me oversight of both departments during the transition, effectively neutralizing any influence EMTT might still have while positioning me as indispensable to the company's stability. This approach prevents operational disruption while maintaining our Q2 targets, I concluded, displaying a timeline that coincidentally extended my expanded authority through the next 2 fiscal quarters. And it signals to our team that personal matters don't interfere with professional excellence at Apex. The board approved my proposal unanimously. By lunchtime, I had access to all of EMTT's departmental files, contacts, and projects. By 3 p.m., I'd identified and secured loyalty from his 3 most competent team leaders. By 5:00 p.m., I'd drafted an all-hands announcement framing the changes as strategic optimization rather than Your boss got caught with his pants down. The final touch came Tuesday morning when Maddox called me into his office to show me EMTT's formal resignation letter, which had arrived overnight along with a settlement agreement waiving any claims against the company in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement and neutral reference. Impressive outcome, Maddox noted, studying me with newfound respect. From catastrophe to clean resolution in less than a week. Crisis management is part of the job, I replied modestly. And Paige accepted a transfer to our Seattle office, effective immediately. I believe it's for the best. What I didn't mention was that her transfer came with a confidential agreement to provide a detailed statement about EMTT's manipulation of the training program selection process, insurance against his future attempts at reputation rehabilitation. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at Harbor Lights. Table 10, a respectable distance from the now infamous Table 8. Pierce joined me, bringing a bottle of champagne that he'd been saving for a truly worthy occasion. To clean endings, he toasted. And strategic new beginnings, I added, clinking my glass against his. As we enjoyed our celebratory dinner, Pierce's phone lit up with a text. He glanced at it and burst into laughter. What? I asked. EMTT just texted me asking if I'd represent him in the divorce. He showed me the message. Apparently, your lawyer is playing hardball, and he needs someone who understands how these things work. I nearly choked on my champagne. The audacity of mediocre men never ceases to amaze me. I told him I have a conflict of interest, Pierce replied, his eyes meeting mine with unmistakable warmth. A very intriguing conflict of interest. I raised my glass again to conflicts of interest. Sometimes they lead to the most interesting opportunities. 6 months can change everything. Half a year since Table 8. Half a year since I traded in my wedding ring for a corner office and the profound satisfaction of watching a house of cards collapse under the weight of its own deception. I'm sitting on the balcony of my new waterfront apartment, watching the Boston Harbor glitter in the autumn sunset. The Beacon Hill brownstone went to EMTT in the divorce settlement. Not because he deserved it, but because I wanted nothing that carried the fingerprints of our marriage. A clean slate was worth more than square footage and historical architecture. The divorce was finalized last week. 3 hours in a mediator's office, signatures on multiple documents, and 11 years of marriage reduced to asset division spreadsheets and custody arrangements for our only joint venture. A surprisingly resilient fuss plant named Ferdinand. EMTT got the plant. I got freedom. Do you regret any of it? My sister Natalie asked when I called to tell her it was officially over. She's been my emotional safety net throughout this entire saga, offering wisdom from her Seattle sanctuary, where she teaches philosophy to bright-eyed college students who think they've invented existentialism. Regret is for people who lack forward momentum, I replied, surprising myself with how much I meant it. I spent 11 years with a man who couldn't even cheat competently. The only thing I regret is not having better surveillance equipment to capture his face when everything imploded. The professional aftermath has been nothing short of remarkable. Apex Solutions experienced a 23% increase in sales after I implemented the new cross-departmental structure. Turns out removing a narcissistic middle manager with mediocre ideas and replacing him with a streamlined reporting system works wonders for efficiency. The board made my expanded role permanent last month along with a compensation package that would make EMTT's eyes water if he knew the details. As for the other players in our little corporate drama, Paige lasted exactly 6 weeks in Seattle before accepting a position with a competitor in Portland. According to LinkedIn, she's now a strategic human capital consultant, which I assume means professional job hopper with an exaggerated title. EMTT tried and failed to secure a director-level position at 3 different companies, all of which mysteriously received anonymous emails containing security footage from a certain restaurant. He's currently working as a sales manager at a mid-tier tech company in Providence, making roughly half his previous salary and reporting to someone 5 years his junior. I wish I could say I orchestrated his professional downfall, but karma apparently works pro bono these days. The most unexpected development has been Pierce Sullivan, who parlayed his restaurant management experience into launching a boutique hospitality consulting firm. We've been meeting for dinner every Thursday since the champagne toast 6 months ago. Strictly professional at first, then gradually evolving into something neither of us was looking for, but both of us apparently needed. You know what's ironic? Pierce said last week as we shared dessert at a new restaurant far from Harbor Lights. If EMTT had chosen literally any other restaurant in Boston for his affair, we never would have met. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor. I agreed, stealing the last bite of tiramisu. Imagine building your career on strategic planning only to be destroyed by tactical stupidity. Last I heard through the corporate grapevine, EMTT and his card paramour Melissa had a short-lived rebound relationship that collapsed when he discovered she was also seeing her CrossFit instructor. Apparently, being the backup option wasn't as appealing as being the main attraction. Shocking. People often ask if I'm over it yet. As if emotional recovery follows a linear timeline with a defined end point. The truth is more nuanced. Am I over the marriage? Absolutely. Am I over the betrayal? Not entirely. But I've repurposed that particular emotion into something more productive. The experience taught me 3 invaluable lessons. First, trust, but verify. I now apply the same due diligence to my personal relationships that I do to marketing campaigns. Transparency isn't just a corporate buzzword. It's the foundation of any relationship worth maintaining. Second, revenge is a dish best served on company letterhead. Public confrontations make for dramatic stories, but strategic professional maneuvering creates lasting consequences. EMTT lost more than a wife. He lost his career trajectory, his reputation, and his inflated sense of invincibility. Third, and perhaps most importantly, catastrophe often clears the path for opportunity. Without Table 8, I would still be second fiddle in a department I should have been running, married to a man whose mediocrity I had mistaken for stability. Next week, I'm flying to New York to present our success case study at an industry conference. PS is coming along officially as a networking opportunity, unofficially as something we're still defining, but both enjoying tremendously. My keynote speech is titled Transparency as a Competitive Advantage, How Clear Communication Transforms Organizations. The irony isn't lost on me. Life after infidelity isn't about rebuilding what was lost. It's about constructing something entirely new from better materials. And if you're smart about it, you can architect a reality so superior to your previous existence that you find yourself almost grateful for the demolition. Almost. As for EMTT, I hear Table 8 at Harbor Lights is permanently reserved under his name. Not because he ever did, because Pierce thought it would make an excellent corporate cautionary tale. Some legacies aren't quite what we envision for ourselves.